He crossed the finish line of a marathon 3 weeks before it happened. Full training, perfect health. Mid-race, his vision went dark. His heart was 60% blocked, and he had no idea. Neither would you. That's not a dramatic opening. That's exactly what happened, and by the time this video is over, you're going to understand why this kind of story isn't rare. It's just rarely talked about, because everything you think you know about heart attacks is probably wrong. Let's start with the thing nobody says out loud. Your heart does not pump blood to itself. Think about that for a second. This organ that never stops, not once in your entire life, has its own private supply line. Two arteries that wrap around it like a crown, branching out to feed every single zone of muscle. They're called the coronary arteries, and when one of them starts to die, you usually feel nothing. For years, sometimes decades, that's the part that should terrify you. There's a threshold, around 70% blockage, where the artery is already more than half gone, and your body hasn't sent you a single signal. No pain, no warning. You're still running, still working, still living your life while your heart is quietly running out of road. The disease doesn't announce itself. It builds in silence, and it waits. The buildup has a name: atherosclerosis, plaque made of oxidized cholesterol, calcium, inflammatory cells, cellular debris, slowly embedding itself into the artery wall. It's not something that happens to old people. It starts in your 30s, sometimes earlier. High blood pressure accelerates it. Smoking feeds it. Poorly controlled blood sugar turbocharges it. Chronic stress keeps the inflammation running, and genetics can put you on the fast track before you even make a single bad choice. But here's the thing that even most doctors don't emphasize enough. The biggest heart attacks aren't caused by the biggest plaques. They're caused by unstable ones, small, inflamed, volatile plaques that crack, and the moment they crack, your body panics. It sees a rupture in the artery wall and immediately sends in a clot to seal it. That clot, trying to repair a fissure the size of a pinhead, ends up blocking the entire artery in minutes. No blood, no oxygen, the muscle downstream starts dying. That's a heart attack, and it can happen with a plaque that was only 40% blocked the day before. That's why someone can pass a stress test on a Friday and be in the ER on a Monday. Now, back to our runner. He had no chest pain that day, no crushing pressure, no left arm pain, none of the textbook signs. What he felt was his heart going wrong, a chaotic, disordered pounding that didn't match his effort, and twice his vision tunneled, the kind that means you're about to black out. A fellow racer spotted him on his knees and called the medical team. The paramedics ran an ECG on the spot. The diagnosis wasn't a heart attack, it was atrial fibrillation. AFib. The most common heart rhythm disorder in the world, and one of the most misunderstood. Here's what it actually is. Normally, your heart runs on a clean electrical signal. One trigger, coordinated contraction, perfect timing. In AFib, the upper chambers of the heart stop contracting entirely. They quiver, and the lower chambers, receiving hundreds of chaotic electrical impulses instead of one clean signal, beat fast and completely out of rhythm. You feel it as palpitations that don't make sense, breathlessness that doesn't match your effort, dizziness. Sometimes you almost pass out, and sometimes you feel nothing at all. But AFib isn't just uncomfortable. It's dangerous in a way most people don't realize. When the upper chambers stop contracting properly, blood stagnates in a small pocket on the left side of the heart. Stagnant blood clots. And if that clot breaks free and enters the circulation, it goes straight to the brain. AFib multiplies your stroke risk by five times. That's why people with chronic AFib are almost always on blood thinners. They stabilized his rhythm with an electric shock twice because the first one didn't hold. But while they were working on his heart, they ran a blood test that changed everything. Troponin. Troponin is a protein that lives inside your cardiac muscle cells. It stays there as long as those cells are alive. The moment a cell starts dying, it leaks troponin into the bloodstream. It's your heart's distress signal, the most precise biological marker we have for detecting that something went wrong in the muscle. His troponin was elevated, and instead of dropping, it kept rising. That meant one thing: the AFib hadn't just disrupted his rhythm, it had pushed his heart past a threshold it couldn't handle. The next morning, they threaded a catheter up through his wrist, injected contrast dye, and watched his coronary arteries live on X-ray. There it was, 60% blockage on the left anterior descending artery, the one cardiologists call the widowmaker, not because every blockage there is fatal, but because a complete blockage there very often is. The diagnosis, type 2 myocardial infarction, not the classic kind where a plaque ruptures and a clot seals the artery shut. This was a supply-demand crisis. His heart muscle, already working with a compromised artery, suddenly faced an extreme spike in oxygen demand from the AFib. The artery couldn't keep up. The muscle started dying. Without the AFib, he finishes the race. With it, his silent plaque became a cardiac event. And here is the part of this story that most people never hear. He survived partly because of luck, partly because of the medical team on site, but also, and this is important, because his heart had built its own backup system. Years of consistent cardiovascular training does something to your heart that no medication can replicate. It forces your coronary arteries over and over into states of high demand. And the heart responds by growing new vessels, tiny alternative pathways that can reroute blood around a blockage. The process is called arteriogenesis, and it's driven by signals like VEGF, a growth factor your body releases when oxygen runs short during exercise. His heart had spent years building that network. When the widowmaker couldn't deliver, the collateral stepped in. They kept enough muscle alive. That's why his heart attack, as serious as it was, wasn't the one that killed him. Exercise doesn't just prevent plaques. When plaques are already there, and they might already be there in you right now, exercise is what keeps the damage survivable. So what caused the AFib that day? He'd done dozens of races without incident. It wasn't one thing, it was a storm. He'd traveled in the days before, disrupted sleep, stress, schedule chaos. The night before the race, he slept badly. He was mildly dehydrated going in. And that morning, he took a pre-workout supplement he didn't normally use, higher caffeine than his body was used to, on top of everything else. Caffeine by itself isn't the villain here. Regular coffee drinkers are generally fine. But when you spike far above your normal dose, especially in a body that's already sleep-deprived and dehydrated, you can trigger an arrhythmia in a heart that would otherwise never have one. The lesson isn't to avoid caffeine. It's to never experiment with a new stimulant on race day. Half dose first, always. The storm assembled itself quietly over 72 hours, and then the race was the match that lit it. Now here's the question you're probably asking yourself right now. If I could have 60% blockage in the widowmaker and feel nothing, what do I actually do about it? You get screened, properly, not just a cholesterol check. Ask your doctor about your full lipid panel and make sure it includes LPA and ApoB, not just total cholesterol. 1 in 5 people has an inherited elevation in LPA that dramatically increases their heart attack risk, and most of them have never been told. Ask about your fasting glucose and HbA1c. Ask about your blood pressure trend, not just one reading. And if you're over 40, have a family history of early heart disease, or have any combination of the risk factors we talked about, ask specifically about the coronary calcium score. It's a fast CT scan, no injection required, that measures calcified plaque in your coronary arteries directly. A score of 0 in someone over 45 is one of the most reassuring results in cardiovascular medicine. A high score is an early warning that changes everything. Your medication decisions, your screening frequency, your awareness. It's one of the most powerful tools in preventive cardiology, and it's massively underused. The rest you already know, but probably aren't doing consistently. Exercise, real exercise, 150 minutes a week minimum, and not a casual walk. Sleep 7 to 9 hours on a consistent schedule. Your circadian rhythm matters as much as the hours. Cut ultra-processed food, not because of some wellness trend, but because it drives exactly the inflammation that destabilizes plaques. Manage your stress, because chronic cortisol elevation is a direct cardiovascular risk factor, not a soft lifestyle concern. And if you smoke, nothing else on this list matters as much as stopping, not even close. Our runner is healthy today. He trains under close cardiological supervision. He knows what's in his arteries now. He knows his triggers. And his heart, the one that built its own backup roads over years of early mornings and long miles, is still beating. But he was also lucky that someone saw him go down, lucky that the medical team was close, lucky that his collaterals held. You might not be. So if you're over 40, if you have risk factors, if you exercise hard and assume that makes you immune, make the appointment this week, not when symptoms show up, because by then the artery is already mostly gone. Share this with someone you love, not because it's a good video, because they probably don't know any of this either. And now you do. See you in the next one.